Hi, everyone. And probably the thing I have to emphasize is that it feels like the Turkish Basketball League should be a big sponsor of the URBONUS podcast because not just, as always, we have this frequent guest, Errick McCollum of Karsiyaka, but this time there's another member of another Turkish Basketball League team, guard of Galatasaray Istanbul, McCollum Ennis. Hey guys, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here despite, being in a serious stage on basically the eve of the Turkish League playoffs.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
And I know that Dylan has some other stuff to deal with now, but I'll keep those things when it will get official. But what just became official, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of it, but the EuroLeague just announced a new partnership deal with ESPN, which means that US basketball fans will be able to watch the EuroLeague playoffs, the Final Four in Kaunas, and the entire 2023-24 season on ESPN platform. So how about that?
That's a game changer. I think it will help bring a lot of attention to Europe. A lot of people always wonder what happens to their favorite players, who aren't playing in the NBA. And I think it will bring the attention to the high quality, of EuroLeague basketball and the European style. And it would be different because fans will start to see that every game counts, every game matters. And I think it will help the game grow globally. And it only makes sense that they do this. The NBA did it with their league, bringing it to Europe and other parts overseas. Only makes sense that the EuroLeague brings it to America.
Yeah.
Great move.
Obviously, not all the Americans play in EuroLeague, but the ones that do, everybody, hey, what link could I click on to watch your games and things like that? So, at least having the EuroLeague to watch, I think it definitely helps all of Europe. Get the name out there, especially in America, for people to see, how we play out here, the style, because they have no clue, what goes on here if they're not big basketball junkies. So it's definitely a step in the right direction.
And it's going to be good for players who want to go to the NBA. Your European players, it's a little bit more convenient for NBA teams to turn on the TV, than it is to get on the plane and travel 10 to 12 hours, so it'll definitely be a game changer for them.
How about this EuroLeague TV experience? I mean, is it probably it's not very, user friendly in States, or, because even before they could watch EuroLeague games on EuroLeague TV, I believe.
I like it. I'm familiar with it. I've been using it, but for the average, American citizen, they already have their cable package. They already have, whatever they use to go and pay for something extra. Sometimes they're a little bit slower to do it. They'll maybe do it for Netflix or something like this, but when something's already on TV, if you're a basketball fan and you want to watch a game, and let's say there's no NBA games on, or there's no teams that you really desire to watch, this is something that would be convenient for them, easy for them, just flipping the channels. And, they might tune in and watch. And what EuroLeague should do is focus on, if you want to have that American engagement, focus on those American players, because they all come from certain colleges, and those colleges have alumni base, and alumni will always support people who played for their university. So, if you were there, if you were a big player, you played well, people who maybe don't even care about European basketball, they care about that player. And that's the way to kind of increase the engagement, with the American citizen.
Errick, speaking of an engagement, Yeah, Dylan, you can continue.
No, sorry, just to piggyback off what Errick said, even as the TBT, it shows the same thing. You forget about some players that went to your college. So now you get to see them play after college, even if they're not in the NBA. And, the following will, grow because they want to see these guys that they used to grow up watching, or the alumni who used to support them. Now they get to support them overseas. So I definitely think, focusing on American players who play, you definitely get that crowd from America who want to support people they watched years before.
And since Errick, you mentioned this engagement thing, I've seen CG on ESPN quite frequently. What about bringing this podcast on ESPN platform as well?
that would be fun. That would be fun for sure. I think they definitely could use us now, since they have the EuroLeague rights. They might as well hire some guys who are familiar with the EuroLeague. What better than us?
Yeah, Dylan, you're just about the right time to jump on this URBONUS podcast bandwagon.
Yeah, man. If it's in checks, then I'm definitely jumping in.
Yeah, and ESPN has unlimited pockets. Disney owns them, so they can make it rain.
Yeah, a lot of money over there.
Yeah, guys. Obviously, we're here to discuss the EuroLeague playoffs, and we have 3 great Game 5s on the line, and it's actually great that NBA fans, US basketball fans, will have at least this slight chance to see the decisive games of the season on the ESPN platform. And so we'll share our predictions for all of these games, but we'll try to go, individually by each case. But before we start this discussion, how would you rank out of these 3 upcoming matchups this week? How would you rank Partizan, Maccabi, and Fenerbahce as the most likely to make history and become the first away team to win Game 5 in the history of the EuroLeague playoffs? From the most likely to the least likely, how your top 3 would look like?
For me, go ahead. You want me to go? For me, and it's almost like I'm kind of changing my opinion because I obviously picked Real Madrid to win. And, I thought they were going to win, but just, watching the game, I should have known better. Never go against Abramovich and his team. He's unbeatable in the playoffs. He had those boys ready. And, I think it might have been a clean sweep if, the unfortunate circumstances hadn't occurred with the brawl. But I think they're going to win Game 5. I mean, you have Punter back. Now the source, he came back last game, but, now he's coming back with Punter as well. They're going to have the full team, full roster. It seems like Exum, I'm sure he's battling through pain, but it seems like he's okay, playing wise, he's able to impact the game. And I just feel like, it'd be a disservice for them, to dominate that series, it almost feels unfair, the way things played out. And now the series is 2-2, and we know why. Not because they were the better team, but because circumstances allowed them. So I feel like the basketball guys are going to look out for them, and I feel like they're going to come in hungry. And it's going to be extremely difficult, after losing 2 in a row. They have the confidence, but I feel like if anybody's going to make history, it's got to be Phil Jackson of Europe. Right? It's got to be Abramovich. Yeah. He's got to be the one who makes history. So, and I made a mistake. I went against him once. I will not make the same mistake twice.
It's good. It's good thing that you mentioned Partizan, and now I have this question for both of you. If you were the CEO of the EuroLeague and you had all the power to decide, just a quick reminder that it was a decision by the EuroLeague disciplinary judge. But let's say EuroLeague CEO has all the power to decide on these sanctions. How would you have handled the situation after the brawl in Madrid?
Completely.
Go ahead.
I think giving, I think the biggest one was Punter, because, watching him, even when everything happened, he was able to not react as bad as, other people would. And because he did that, I don't think that they should have they gave him 2 games, correct? 2 games. So now, even if Partizan would end up winning that first game, then he doesn't play in the Final Four. I think the maximum, at least Punter should have got, was 1 game because, give him 1 game for disciplinary reasons. But yeah, as Errick said, I think the basketball guys are going to look out for them because they had the series won. You're going back to Partizan with your full team. It's going to be hard to beat them at home to go to the Final Four. So I definitely think, what they did with Punter was, not the right decision. But yeah, I think it was a must-see basketball that EuroLeague took away from the watchers. And obviously they have the last game to decide that, but it's going to be a disservice to Partizan and EuroLeague if, and Real's a great team, but if they advance and Partizan lost their shot, it's gonna suck.
Yeah, as far as the suspensions and the sanctions, I understand the EuroLeague was in a tough place. They kind of had to make a statement just so that something like this doesn't happen. You kind of have to set a precedent, but I feel like the agitator should always be suspended because there's always, someone who starts, the flame, so and anyone who charged or went at somebody should have been, suspended. But, for Punter was more so in a defense mode. He was more like backpedaling and people were coming towards him. So, maybe there's a suspension, but I think one game is more warranted. Lou should have been suspended. Musa should have been suspended because he went charging. If you watch it, you see it clearly. They did the right thing with Deck one game, didn't do it two. I just felt like two would have been too much because he's an important player, and you don't want to take away from the main picture in the playoffs. Like, you don't want to reward a team for starting and instigating a situation and giving them an opportunity to get back into the series. And that's kind of what they did. When you take away Punter, it really destroys that team. As you see, they're struggling on the perimeter to create things, to manufacture offense. He can kind of break Rumors' zone defense. He can play the pick and roll, get to the mid-range area, the pull-ups, which is what they're susceptible, giving up basically that shot off the screen. If you could shoot that pull-up three with Tavares in that drop, that's the shot they give up. The mid-range is a little bit more difficult because he's so tall, but the three ball is there, and that's what he excels at. He's one of the best shooters in the EuroLeague off of that one dribble pull-up, off the pick and roll, 2 dribbles into the shot. And, without that, he makes the defense extend, and it kind of opens everything up for everybody. And, Brovich made his adjustments. He did what he had to do, but, the loss of Kevin Punter was just too much. And, they tried to play through the post, but they weren't able to win like that. They were effective. They had moments, but you have to be able to hit shots consistently from the perimeter and to have someone break down the defense. And I think Punter's the only one on that roster who can break down the defense. I think Nunley can hit shots, but Punter's a little bit better with the ball and creating certain things.
Yeah, I've checked stats, and actually both games ended up in pretty similar scenario. With 3 minutes to play, the game was basically tie, or it was like Madrid having a small lead, like 2 points or something. But I've checked the Partizan stats of their field goal shooting in the last 3 minutes of both games. So game 3, they made 1 of 8 field goals in the last 3 minutes. The game 4, 2 of 8 field goals. So
and you have to understand that that's Punter, where he does his best work in that time.
Exactly. And I mean, the 3 field goals that Partizan scored in the last 6 minutes of both games was Lidey's off-board 3, Madar's layup after stealing the ball in the middle of the court and making a transition, and then there was this crazy deflection play. So these were the 3 field goals that they've made. So I mean, Punter is coming as a rescuer in this situation, because just as Errick mentioned, I mean, not only Kevin Punter is the best clutch player on Partizan, his presence just gives confidence to the rest of the team in a way of how James Nunnally can just make a spot-up corner free, how Zach Lidey can be in a better post position, because Kevin Punter with the ball, he can create plays both for himself and for the others. Now, all these guys, they had to be something like Kevin Punter, to be these hero, to make those hero ball plays in the last minutes. And it was not the Partizan team that this team was all about the entire season.
And that's stressful for players who are usually catch and shoot guys, or who are usually defenders, who are energy guys. Now you're asking Mader to be a scorer, in certain situations. Now you're asking Nunley to play more with the basketball, and that puts guys at a position where they haven't been for 9 months, 8 months. You've been playing a certain role in a Brovich system. Now you're forced to be something a little bit more. Now he has to go deeper to the bench. Now Petru played well too. He showed up, but there's a lot of guys thrust into roles that they haven't had to play all year. And in a playoff time, that's not really what you want. So I think one game would have been sufficient. Yeah. The good news is, if Partizan can win game 5, they got an extra game at home, 20,000 people times, I don't know how much the average ticket is, 30, 40 euros, who knows? I mean, as a Zagreus man yourself, how much money one extra game can bring a club. So, that could help them, financially and stuff. But, if they don't win game 5, it kind of it's almost all for nothing.
All for nothing, yeah.
1.5 million actually for Žalgiris. One playoff game was 1.5 million in revenue. So for Partizan, maybe it should be quite similar, because the price is a bit lower, but they have 20,000 fans capacity.
So you guys are mad at Saris for not giving y'all,
Yeah, I thought that they made this agreement before the series, but I don't know.
I need to play out there, man. I heard it's crazy to play out there. That arena I heard it's madness.
Beautiful arena. Beautiful. Lithuanian people, they love the game. They do. And they know it. They know the game of basketball.
Yeah, but people in Belgrade, they love the game too, and Dylan knows it better than anybody.
No, blame that. I try to tell people. I try to explain it to people back home, but you just can't even explain how it is. When I'm on the home team, when I was on Red Star, I'm on the bench, and obviously I was a rookie. I could feel my chest beating hard, and it's not a feeling like I'm at an away game. It's like you're excited to play, and you just don't. I've never seen that anywhere else I've been. The thing that came close when we played Fener here,
yeah,
the game was completely wild. Like I get it, and you know, Errick, we get up for those type games.
Yeah,
but yeah, Red Star, it was madness.
I mean, I think that the only other gym that shares kind of similar atmosphere is Athens, when Olympiacos and Panathinaikos are playing. So basically, we have the three hottest places in European basketball. I mean, Belgrade, Athens, and Istanbul. Because, I mean, Žalgiris arena is nice. The atmosphere there is great, but it's different. It's more like, I would say, family-oriented compared to those three other gyms.
Yeah, they're loud, but in Žalgiris, I feel it's safer. When you're playing Red Star Partizan,
that's not safe.
You feel unsafe. Like, I would have my wife fly if we played a Lithuanian team, and let's say we played Žalgiris. I would feel comfortable with my wife and my son coming to the game, watching, cheer. My wife would not come to the Panathinaikos game or Olympiacos or Partizan. No,
there's no way.
There's no way. Like, it's just a too hostile environment.
Yeah. What do you think about if you're playing at home and let's like Red Star and you have kids now, but you want them to watch you play? Do you still bring them to the game?
I let them come unless we play Partizan. They stay, or I get a box seat because you just never know what could happen.
You never know, yo.
The most paradoxical thing is that actually Rudy Fernandez, like 10 years ago, he was beaten by a couple of Lithuanian fans inside the gym, actually, behind the scenes. So I never heard about any player being beaten in Belgrade or Athens. So this is one of, I would say, most unexpected facts that unfortunately have to share with our listeners, that we had this case. And of course, those fans were banned for life. Žalgiris got a fine of, I would say, maybe 100,000 euros or something. So it was a big scandal in Lithuania. And for sure, it doesn't illustrate Lithuanian fan experience at all. It was just two drunk guys, or particularly one drunk guy who made terrible decision.
So they fined Žalgiris for the actions of individuals that they could not control, who had no affiliation with the club.
Yeah.
This is unfair. This is unfair.
I mean, they were kind of organizers of the game, so you kind of have to protect the players, or to make sure that the players are protected even after the game. So maybe that was the case. I think it's fair. I think it's fair.
They wanted more security, huh?
Yeah,
to follow the players.
Yeah. Anyways, regarding Partizan, I had this question. You just mentioned Kevin Punter. Now it feels like he is coming as some kind of messiah for Partizan, because he's the most clutch player in the league, and Partizan as well. Now he comes, and now they're gonna win the game 5. But missing those last 2 games, having these expectations around, did you try to get in his shoes? How can he be affected in this mental side?
The thing with him is he just has to be himself. He's extremely talented. He's a shot maker. He can score. The tendency is, when you're a big time player, you want to win so bad that sometimes you do too much. Yeah. And so if he just comes in, he relaxes. If he lets the game come to him, he's experienced. He's been to the Final Four. He's done stuff with Milan. He's won a Champions League. He has a very good resume. So I think like he'll come in with the right mindset, because he's a guy who doesn't shy away from the moment. I just think that he just has to be patient early on, because the team played different, without you. And I think they'll adjust, they'll get back in task. But sometimes you read the game, you see what your teammates are going to do, you see where they're at, and then you'll know in the first 3 or 4 minutes, how aggressive you need to be. If guys are shying away from the moment, that's when you put your foot on the gas. If everybody is, moving the ball, they're scoring, everybody's in the rhythm, you can kind of coast. You see LeBron James do it. You coast a little bit, and then you have more energy throughout the whole game. The second half, you still play hard defense, but I'm just saying you don't assert yourself offensively because your team is flowing. And so like he's kind of that needle that can kind of thrust them to where they need to go offensively. And I think I mean, it'd be a great story, right? Like if, the team loses without him, he's a free agent this summer. If he can come in, make them win, it shows his value. It makes Partizan almost indispensable to them. His agent will be extremely happy. He'll demand a lot of money on the market. And I mean, he'll be legendary.
Legendary.
Will he ever have to buy anything? Will he ever have to pay for a meal?
Definitely not there.
Right. So I think it's a perfect story. And I think really the first 5 minutes, take what the defense gives you, but read it out. And I think he'll have a great performance just because that's who he is. He's a clutch player, and I don't think they have a good matchup for him guard wise.
And this is why I sometimes text Errick and ask him for advice, because that was a great synopsis on how he should approach the game. Because obviously I've only been playing in Europe for 6 years. And my mentality is like, if I'm Punter, I'm like, I've been building up for the last 2 games wanting to play. So I'm coming out ultra aggressive. But it makes sense to ease in because, they've been playing this way for the last 2 games. And, obviously he doesn't want to overthink it, allow himself to, find his rhythm. Because I remember a few months ago, I had to miss a game because of a suspension I got in the Turkish league. And you miss that game, so I didn't play for a whole week. And then I get in there and, I'm trying to be ultra aggressive, but, I'm out of rhythm a little bit. And you don't think about that. You think, I just miss a game or 2 and I'm just going to pick up where I left off. But, it's definitely, a time, especially in the playoffs, and they're on the road, what Errick said is so important for him to, get his rhythm, the right way, because they definitely going to need him down the stretch.
Yep.
So, Dylan, you also have them winning Game 5 in Madrid?
I obviously I played in Spain for many years, and I love the league and everything. And Real is a great team, but I would love to see the underdog. I'm an underdog story type of guy, for what they went through, and Obradovic, getting back to Serbia and getting to the Final Four, with that roster, I think it would be an amazing story. So that's what I love to see, and I think personally they got the dogs on that side now. They got motivation, and if I was a betting man, I'd bet on Partizan for Game 5.
I would say I also take Partizan in 5, just what I've said before the series, and Errick knows it very well.
You did.
And especially in this case, mainly because Gabriel Deck got injured, and I think that he was very important for Madrid. He was a huge advantage on Madrid's team. And now without him, I'm not sure if even Edy Tavares is playing some amazing basketball, just proving once again how great he is in the EuroLeague, how dominant he is on both ends of the sides of the floor. I just feel that Partizan has it all, to win Game 5. And if only Kevin will find his inner peace to adjust, to get back, to be calm in those moments, I think that Partizan will be fine. Of course, it should be a great fight between those 2 teams, but it would make sense if Partizan wins the Game 5.
Yeah, it would be just, I think. And I don't even root for teams, but just how everything played out, I think it would be special just to see them win. I mean, it's essentially the same Euro Cup team from last year.
Yeah.
And they added 3 players, and now they're in the Final Four potentially. Like, that's just an excellent coaching job. Guys coming together. I think great leadership by Edy, Punter. Those guys who were on the roster last year, they kind of, bring all in because, they had some moments last year where they struggled, in those big games in the Euro Cup. And just to see them kind of transition, going from that single elimination tournament, losing at home in a game they had no business doing in the Euro Cup, to now it looks like they're a team that could go on the road and win in Madrid. Like, that's a crazy turn of events, in less than 1 year.
Yeah, and I just wanted to give credit to Edy Tavares one last time. We mentioned how crucial for Partizan was missing Kevin Punter in those decisive moments. But at the same time, Edy Tavares and his impact on the court offensively, for instance, was huge. Game 3, 26 points, 11 rebounds, 4 offensive rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks, 41 for performance index rating, one of the best playoff performances all time. Game 4, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 4 offensive boards, 2 steals, 2 blocks, 30 performance index rating. He's averaging 30.3 performance index rating, and I've checked that in both games 3 and 4, when he was on the floor, Partizan's 2-point shooting percentage decreased by 27%. Of course, that tells a lot about how his backup was not, performing as he should, maybe. But I mean, when he was on the court for Partizan, it was so tough to find the basket if that was in the paint or not a three-pointer. And I believe that Dylan knows better than anybody else, having this ACB experience, how it feels just to have Edy in the paint. I would actually love to have the stat, not just blocked shots, but the shots that they were changed or the shots that they were impacted.
It's even before you even get to the paint, because I always say I haven't seen a big in Europe. In college, you have your few, but in Europe, I haven't played against a big who makes me change my mentality of playing. Obviously I like to get to the basket, but it's not even when you get to the basket. Yes, you're changing your shot, but even when I'm on the 3-point line and I'm like, okay, I'm about to beat Deck or I'm about to beat Koshira, and then I have to see Tavares in there. So you even think before you're putting up the shot, you're trying to find out, how can I get a shot over him? Should I get him on the move? If he's just standing on the basket, then I have to go to a floater, a mid-range shot. No, I think he's the most impactful player, arguably, and by far the most impactful big in there. And now him being so good offensively just makes him a dual threat. But, defensively, playing them throughout the years, it makes you – I was thinking about it a week before we play them. Like, how am I going to score inside with Tavares in there? Because he's such a presence, and he knows how to play the game. He's not just a big body. He knows where to be. He knows, the space to take up. It's definitely hard to score on him inside.
And what's the most impressive thing for me? There's 2 things that stand out. The fact that a man that size can move like that, like laterally up and down the court. He doesn't look goofy. He doesn't look uncoordinated. Everything looks natural. And then the fact that he can play 30 minutes, 31, 32, and then you're in a playoff format. So you're playing game 3 and game 4. That's 2 days later. Like, the fact that he's able to perform at that level, I mean, he's been excellent. He's a beast. People don't even drive on him. They're going to the hole and they're just pulling it out. Like, I know Dylan knows when you play against Tavares, there's like a no layup rule. Like, everyone has to shoot floaters or pull-ups. If you get in the paint and you try to attempt a layup and you're a guard, you're getting subbed out. Like, that's how it was. No one challenged him. Keep your dribble alive in the paint and pull out. Like, when we played against him, it was always, all right, Errick, all pull-ups, snake dribbles, deep threes. And if you get in the paint, pass. If you can, shoot your floaters from 15 feet. Like, not your normal traditional floater in the paint. Now, shoot your floater from the free throw line. And that was the only way to kind of be successful.
Even getting in the lane and you dropping it to your big because he commits, he's still blocking the shot.
Yeah.
The big.
So he can test you, lands on the ground, and then blocks your big man. Like, what can you do with this? And I mean, he's showing his value and his worth. And, like, just to see his growth from his Grand Canary days to now, I mean, he's just an unbelievable player. And even from, I'm from Ohio. So, like, I remember when he played, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, it just seemed like his mobility, his athleticism, you could tell he's really focused on his body because all these things have improved, from that time. And his feel for the game, it's so much better.
Yeah, and he's a real Iron Man. I mean, he's playing through injury. He had to miss the game too. And his season was actually on the line, jeopardized by his injury. But he, thank God that his injury was not that serious. He still plays through the injury, and he manages to dominate the game at such a high level. I mean, he's just awesome. But just to continue with the other matchups, so Errick picked Partizan on top of his most likely away team winning Game 5 ranking. Dylan, do you have Partizan on the top as well, or you have somebody else over them?
I got Partizan number 1.
Okay, so who's next? Who is second in your list?
I play here, so I might get in trouble for this, but if I'm unbiased, I have to take off my gala cape. I have to. If I'm unbiased, I think Fenerbahce could do it. I think they could do it. They're tough. They got the pieces for it. Obviously, Olympiacos, they're amazing. Watching them play basketball, you want to play an offense like that, where the ball is moving, it's not stuck. Everybody knows their role. But watching Fener and the pieces they have, they already got a game there. They come home, they lose a tight one off that crazy shot where they could have easily won that game. I'm not saying they will, but I think they could go in there and give Olympiacos a run for their money, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win.
Interesting. For me,
I just hope I could come back home after I say that. How these fans.
When you started, I really thought that you're gonna choose Maccabi over Tel Aviv, and you mentioned this biasy thing.
No.
For me, I'm choosing Maccabi over Monaco. I had to go in Game 5. I had Monaco losing. I think it's still a great team, but I just really like that Maccabi backcourt, and I think it's smart for Monaco to limit some of those tickets. I've seen that they're only going to give 150. I would give zero. Maybe 10 or 20. This is our gym. We're winning this game. I like being hospitable, but this is Game 5 now, so I think that's a very nice gesture of them to do 150. And 150 of Maccabi fans, they can sound them like 400 or 500. Like they have that capacity. But I think it's going to be a great guard play. I think you'll see great performances from Mike James. I think you'll see Jordan Lloyd, a Cowboy, put on a performance as well. But I just really like Wade Baldwin and Lorenzo Brown, what they do. I like their versatility with their bigs, like Poitras, Nebo. I think this is a place where home court won't be as big an advantage. Obviously, the Monaco gym is smaller. France, it's more like spectators, not a hostile environment. The fact that you can have 150 fans from another team tells you, that, they're civilized, everything's going to be smooth. And I just feel like, Maccabi has the roster at that time. Everything started to click. It came together. Monaco maybe has more experience together as a group, losing Game 5 last year to Olympiacos, at their place. So you think that can make them a little stronger. But some reason, I think it's hard to come back from a 30-point thrashing. It's okay to lose sometimes, but, they really dominated the game. And I think that's going to give Maccabi a lot of confidence moving forward. And, I think personally it's easier to lose by 30 in play than to lose by a game winner. And that's why I have Fener as the third. The fact that they're able to win Game 4, after how they lost Game 3, is super impressive. It tells me the character of those guys, how well coached they are, and their toughness, because that was enough to kind of break a lot of people. Like that shot, great defense. Nigel fully contests, and Salukas just makes a play. Like he's known as a bit shot maker. Maybe they can do a better job of getting the ball out of his hands, but at the end of the day, they defended it well. And I just feel like winning in Seth in Game 5 with a team that's been together for years, that has experience. You got to remember, Fener's a whole new team, a whole new roster, a whole new coaching staff. They have not been battle tested. This is their first test.
Yeah.
So do I think they're a great team? Yes. Do I think they have the potential to be special? I think if they keep the core together, they can do a lot. I'm also wondering what they're going to do with Wilbekin. Is he going to play? Is he not? If he plays, it takes away from Carson Edwards. Do they still use him? Does that take away from Tyler Dorsey's minutes? Scotty's a great player. It's extremely difficult to find minutes for 3 shooting guards. When there's only one position, there's only 40 minutes at the shooting guard position. You can slide Scotty to the 1 and 2, but he's also out of rhythm. He hasn't played in almost 2 months. Do you risk playing him? Like, it's just a lot of questions. And my money says to always go with the team that has history, that's been together longer, and the team that has a dominant home court. And Olympiacos has shown us who they are throughout the course of the year. And I'm a firm believer in a body of work. So I'm gonna go with that first place, what they showed me all year, that body of work. And the fact that Vezenkov only had 2 points and it took, Fener, barely could beat him, that screams an excellent team to me. When your best player has a off game or a bad game because of excellent defense and you still barely lose by a possession or 2, you're in trouble. And that's how I see the series.
By the way, Slukas also had 3 points. So you have 2 top scorers limited to 5 points. that's an incredible defensive achievement, but at the same time, winning the game that way in such a tight race. I mean, as you mentioned, that speaks about the potential that Olympiacos has for the game 5. You mentioned a lot of good points, and let's stick now with this Fenerbahce and Olympiacos series. Although I also have them at the bottom of my list, I think that Olympiacos will win this one. But let's be honest, not many saw that there will be game 5 in this series, and nobody for sure saw it as I would say, tightest playoff series so far, because 3 of 4 games in Olympiacos and Fenerbahce series were decided by less than 4 points. And that's the first time in the last decade, actually, to have such a tight series. For instance, 10 years ago, Barca and Panathinaikos had 3 games decided by less than 2 points, which is just an incredible fact. But what I think, I mean, and what's maybe obvious, that Fenerbahce did something to this Olympiacos offensive flow. They kept them under 80 points in all 4 games. They made life really hard for Sasha Vezenkov. For instance, there's this list of players who had the biggest decrease in their performance index rating compared to the regular season and the playoffs. So, for instance, 3 Olympiacos players are in the top 5. Yanulis Larazakis, his efficiency decreased by 8 points. Sasha Vezenkov, 7.7, and Thomas Walkup, 6.4. What did you guys notice? How Fenerbahce changed the way Olympiacos was used to play, or how they, broke this flow of Olympiacos game?
Well, from what I saw, it's that size, that length. They're able to be versatile defensively. They can give you a drop D, a high protect defense. They can give you a hedge, but what they have their most success, I think, has been the switch. Besides when Mustafa falls in the game, it's extremely difficult to switch with him. They've done it, but they were vulnerable a little bit. But I think Olympiacos had some struggles getting him the ball early, in the clock, and they were forced to play one-on-one when they really don't have too many strong one-on-one players outside of Shaq McKissick. I think what makes them good is the ball movement, the pick and roll, those type of things. I think Nigel Hayes has been excellent. I said it earlier, before the playoffs, that he's probably the best all-around defensive player in the EuroLeague. And I think he's shown it. He can guard 1 through 5, and he's really cut off the head of the snake in Vezenkov. And it's really hurt their offense, because part of it is he was just playing so out of his mind all year. It's extremely difficult to maintain this pace. The other part of it is that they've game planned for him. He's going against someone who's more athletic, who's stronger, and they're bringing help on certain things. He's not getting those easy cuts. He's not getting those catch and shoot opportunities. He's having to create buckets, and that's not what he does. He's a guy who plays pick and pop, catches the ball in closeout situations, back cuts, offensive rebound. He's not getting any easy buckets, and they've limited all those easy points. They've cut transition opportunities, and they've done a solid job on the glass, considering that they're giving up some size in certain situations. Will fall in the middle, but I think those things have been, detrimental to their offensive flow, and it's disrupted them. And when you have taller guards, Calathes 6'5"-ish, it's easy to switch. And then they even can be creative. You can put a Deshaun Pierre on the guard. You're switching. Now you got a guy, maybe he's only 6'6", 6'7", but he's strong. He's heavy. He can put his weight on the big. And, I said that's their strength. Against Fenerbahce, if you want to beat them, you need guys who can play good one-on-one basketball, or guys who can score really well in the post. That's the only way to beat the switch. And it's not easy when everyone's tall, athletic, and they're shrinking that court.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The switching, it throws your whole offense off. I've played them twice this year, and they did the same thing with us. I come off a ball screen, I have Nigel on me, and then I have Deshaun Pierre switching on to me, and it's almost the same player. You have the length, and I think they're taking away all easy baskets with these switches. And then, Calathes, he's a big guard as well, who could switch as well. And, at the end of the shot clock, you don't want to have to shoot those one-on-one, ISO shots all the time. And I think because they're taking away those easy ones, force them into tough shots, it's throwing off their whole offensive rhythm. But that's why I said why Fener, I think, could possibly win, because they stick to this. It's not like it's an offensive tactic that is not working, so you have to switch it. It's a defensive tactic that they're going to continue to do, and they're really good at it. So, I think if they stick with it and get stops on the defensive end, the offense is going to come. You have Tyler Dorsey, you have Kalatis, getting everybody's shots. And, if Nigel and Carson can hit the threes that they have been, it's going to be tough for Olympiacos.
Yeah, and few stats to mention. Olympiacos 2-point shooting percentage decreased from 61 to 53. Speaking of ball movement, from 22 assists per game in the regular season, now their average is only 15.3. 33 of their points were assisted. Now it's only 24. It feels like Fenerbahce decreased the number of the possessions, as I think Errick mentioned, that they stopped their transition game. So they did a lot of things just to break that flow that basically they were famous for this whole season, and that made players like Vezenkov or Kostas Lukas so great and so shining in the EuroLeague. And it's good that you guys mentioned Nigel Hayes-Davis. As one of my colleagues in Greece from Gazeta, Kostas Malaios, wrote in his article, it feels like Nigel Hayes-Davis actually sticks to Vezenkov even when he goes to the restroom. That's how tight his defense is, and that's how he's taking away all those easy shots. But what's interesting that, both Nigel Hayes-Davis and Deshaun Pierre, they basically played on double shift. Nigel Hayes-Davis logged in 150 minutes out of 160 possible. So he's about to set 2 EuroLeague playoffs records for average and total playing time in the playoffs. And I was just wondering how banged up it feels, to get so much playing time, and when the series are going down to Game 5, both for Nigel and both for Deshaun, or it's just something that you cannot overreact considering the rest that those players get, because Fenerbahce, they didn't play in the Turkish league during the EuroLeague playoffs, so they basically will play 5 games in 14 days. So this heavy minutes thing, is it a factor, or it just looks that bad, but considering their schedule is not that bad at all?
It plays a factor. I think it doesn't come in your effort. I think guys are going to always try to play hard in the playoff time. But when you get fatigued, your shot's a little short. You don't have that same lift. Sometimes your decision making, late in the game when you're fatigued, might be a little cloudy. That's when you'll see guys, make mistakes that they don't normally make, or do things that they don't normally do. The good news is they both don't play with the basketball. They play the 3 and the 4 position. These are the 2 easiest positions on the court physically. Point guard, you have the ball, you're bringing the ball. Then on the reverse end, you're pressing the ball. You're getting hit with pick and rolls. You have to get over top. 5-man, you're running rim to rim, coming out, setting the screen, re-screen, rolling. These are very difficult on your body. But at the 4 position, it's more 3 to 3. You're less involved in pick and roll actions, and you're not getting as much banging and physicality as the 5-man. So I think as a 3-man, you're in the corner more. The only thing is that Deshaun Pierre posts up a lot. And when you're post offense or post defense, it takes a lot of energy out of you. All those boom, those bumps, that shoulder, those quick spins he's doing, those things do wear you out. But they get a lot of rest on the court. And I think that's why Tutis doesn't sub them often throughout the game, because he knows the ball is usually going to be in Kalatis' hands, Tyler Dorsey's hands, Carson Edwards, and then, finding some opportunities for Motley. And you're able to kind of rest them by just putting them in a corner, giving them opportunities, and they're waiting for a spot up shot. But, they are human. They're closer to 30 than they are to 20. And you will see, these things start to affect your offensive performance. And I think that's why both teams, aren't as efficient offensively, because they're fatigued. They're fighting, they're pushing, they're playing great defense. And, a lot of people don't understand, but the better defense you play, a lot of times, the worse your offense. It's just, it's like a tug and pull. Like if you want somebody to get out there, press, deny, you want someone to chase Vezenkov all game, running around, like, you might not have as much legs as normal on your shot or your scoring, and you see that. So that's why teams that usually score a lot of points, they usually give up a lot of points. And teams that don't score much, obviously they exerting a lot of energy defensively.
Yeah, I definitely think what he said is best. The 3 or 4, obviously they're not bring the ball up, running as many actions. But you've seen, Jean-Pierre is able to get that, corner three ball because, he has, I'm not saying more legs than, the Tyler Dorsey's and the Claytis because, they're so active with the ball, but, he's able to, shoot those shots, with time and, knock them down. Because he's not doing the heavy lifting all the time. But, Nigel and Jean-Pierre, knowing them personally, they're workhorses. They know, if we lose, we're going home. So, which I love about them, they're going to figure out how to get it done no matter how many minutes they play. Now, obviously, it's going to wear on them over time. But I think they know the stakes. They know their mentality is built for it. And, with Fener, it just fits, having both of them being able to switch. I think they have good connection in that. And, I think no matter how many minutes they play, they're going to give, the effort. Yeah, the shots might be short here and there, decision making, but, the effort is going to be there. And that's the most important in the playoffs.
So I think Errick, I as well, we have Maccabi in 5, as we, I think, predicted before the series. What about you, Dylan?
Yeah, I love Maccabi. I think Monaco has a great team. Obviously, Mike James is an amazing player. Jordan Lloyd is playing great basketball. But, I think that backcourt of Maccabi and their supporting cast, has been amazing all year. Wayne Baldwin said, me and Lorenzo Brown, he felt like was the best backcourt in EuroLeague. And I think, that confidence they have, it's great. They all sign extensions. So clearly they, love being there. And I think they're going into this game. They just play with this, I would say, chip on their shoulder, but this swag about them that, they going in there to win the game. And, with Monaco not having a great home court advantage, that might play a little factor as well. Maccabi's not going in there thinking, we got to play Olympiacos with these, wild fans, loud fans. So I'm going with Maccabi as well. I think Monaco will give them a good game, obviously, from the experience they've had last year, losing to go to that Final Four. But if I have to bet, I'm betting on Maccabi as well.
Yeah. To me, Maccabi was more consistent team in the playoff series, and which is weird that I would say that Monaco was maybe the weirdest team in the playoffs because when they're down by 10 or more, okay, they'll try to kick once or twice, but if things are not going their way, they can easily just let the game away. That's what just happened in game 1 when you kind of watch the end of the third quarter and you see that there's only one team who really, really, really wants to win this game. And it felt kind of the same in Tel Aviv in game 4. Of course, the way they managed to, return their home court advantage. I mean, Monaco in game 3 was a great, great game by Monaco. But in game 4, they started really well, but they got this Maccabi run 25-0. Of course, it's not easy to bounce back from it, and they tried, but still, in the second half, it felt like they're already thinking about game 5. So I think Maccabi always had this amazing fighting spirit. Even in those 2 losses, even if Monaco was winning, you couldn't feel that, okay, Maccabi, they are done, they're not coming back. They tried to come back in both of these losses, and they did a really good job, and they stayed really consistent with their effort, with the level of the play. But just in some situations, maybe Monaco was a bit better because talent-wise, just in general, I think that Monaco is a better team. But Maccabi has a better momentum. They have a better chemistry for the playoffs. For this moment, they're led by consistent game of Lorenzo Brown and Wade Baldwin. And I'm just missing some things in Monaco game. And basically, these are things I've mentioned before the series. I don't have doubts about Mike James. I have doubts about some other factors, including three-point shooting. I mean, Monaco is making only 25% of threes. There are players like Elio Kobo who was supposed to be, or who is supposed to be, the next franchise player in Monaco. But in the playoff series, he was not that dominant as Mike James, Wade Baldwin, Lorenzo Brown, averaging 11 points on, I think that it was only 25% of three-point shooting. He made more turnovers than assists. His efficiency is really low, around 6 or 7 per game. That's not what your team needs in this stage of the season. And the problem is that Maccabi, they're usually putting very aggressive defense on Mike James, forcing him to kick out the ball. And that means it's more about others to perform. And the problem is that there's not just Elie Okobo, I would say, underperforming by his standards, because he can be really decisive. He showed that in few games this year, just killing those games and winning it for Monaco. But there's also Alpha Diallo, great all-around player, but he's making only 8% of three-pointers. There is Blossom Game, another amazing all-around forward, but 25% of three-pointers. John Brown didn't connect a single three-pointer. There are a lot of other factors that I am not buying it. I cannot trust, and I just see more advantages for Maccabi heading in this game 5. I know that I know that Mike James is listening to this podcast, because I already get this friendly middle finger treatment when I came to Monaco to cover the series. But we're good. We're all good. We're all good to each other. Yeah, and he said that he gonna talk to me for an interview just after game 5. So at least I was right with my prediction that it's gonna be a 5-game series. But a lot of things has to happen, has to go in the right way for Monaco to win this series. And I just feel that, in this situation, I just trust Maccabi a little bit more than Monaco.
Yeah.
Errick, you've muted yourself. We need
sorry.
to hear your basketball mind, because you're my only hope that can bring this podcast to ESPN. So please enjoy the platform.
I think you hit everything on the head. I think, and it's something we talked about this summer when we were talking about the Monaco acquisitions. Like, I really like this roster, I do, but the lack of big man shooting at the 5 and 4 position is what's held them back. It's hurt the spacing for the guards. Hurt the space on the pick and roll, took away some of the live opportunities for Dante Hall, and also took away from some of that ISO space, for those guards to kind of get busy and operate. If you look at the stats, 2 things stand out to me. Game 1, they were 4 for 26 from 3. 4 3-pointers in the entire game on your home floor. That's something that you don't really expect. And then game 4, in Maccabi in the blowout, 3 for 19. So, we're looking at a small sample size. I know 4 games, but that just shows you the lack of a true 3-point threat. They don't really have a sniper. And that's something that could really open up the court for them. And if it was a sniper at the 4 position, it would be ideal, because that would open the entire court. But, right now, EuroLeague deadline's over. Can't add anybody. I do believe in Mike James. I do believe in, that roster, but the lack of shooting, stops me from picking this team, especially against a team who's so explosive offensively, like a Maccabi, who has, all those things. And when they're rolling, as we saw in game 4, they can be a well-oiled machine. To score 104 points in the playoffs, this is not an easy task. In the EuroLeague playoffs, this is the best time of the year. Every team is at their peak, or they wouldn't be here. So that lack of 3-point shooting, I think it's what's going to hurt them in the end. I think it's what hurt them in the Olympiacos series last year. And until they solve that, they're going to continue, to have some issues in these type of games when teams shrink the court and dare them to shoot from the perimeter.
Yeah, I totally agree. 3-point shooting is the name of the game now. And if you can't stretch the floor, especially at least with the 4, it makes everything tough. You've seen in the Partizan game, Smiley hitting that 3 in, I think it was game 3, it gave them a chance. When you have a big who could stretch the floor and, make those bigs come out, it opens up the rest of the game. Mike James could, he's a great scorer, great talent, and obviously he could do so much, but he creates those open spot ups, for other people on Monaco's team. And, if there's not knocking those down, it gets obviously frustrating for them, but definitely gonna get frustrating for Mike as well, because, him creating these shots, he wants to see, points on the board. If they get the three, it's definitely gonna be a great game. But I definitely agree. If they're not knocking those down, it's gonna be tough for them.
Guys, just for the end of the podcast, when you're playing away, when you're playing a decisive game, sometimes I wouldn't call it home teams, but sometimes hosts try to do everything in their power to complicate the away team's life and their chances to win that game. And I mean, we saw a lot of different examples, just releasing the air pressure in the ball for the warm-up and then starting the game with brand new balls, or putting the crazy bus driver in the bus to injure the head coach of the EuroCup finalists. It turns out that there's also this way of trying to change and impact the game, which is horrible, I would say. But anyways, and for instance, I did the research, and it turns out that 28 years ago, allegedly, CSKA Moscow was poisoned in Greece before a decisive game in the playoffs against Olympiacos. Only 5 players managed to make the game because the others were hospitalized, the others were just ill, just couldn't come on the floor. And of course, they lost the series badly. But what were your weirdest experiences playing away in the playoffs, in the finals, watching how hosts try to affect the game? Because nowadays it's a bit more civilized, I would say, as I mentioned, this ball thing on the warm-up, than just putting a bus driver really late to drive you to the practice or even to the game. And nothing as dramatic as it happened or allegedly happened in Greece many years ago. What were your experiences?
I know this season when we played Murcia in the playoffs of the Champions League, they didn't give us the main gym. So we fly in, we're supposed to have practice the day before the game like normal. They didn't give us the main gym. They gave us a time where the handball team would be practicing. So we had to go to the little side court gym. And I tell you, it was so cold. We had, our coaches had jackets on. We all had, our sweats on long sleeve. It was freezing. All the balls were flat. Our coaches are out there trying to pump up the ball. And the rims were not 10 feet. The rims, one rim was higher and one was lower. And so we're warming up on this. And I know he's played in Spain. So I guess my teammates who played in Spain, they said, this is what Murcia does. This is who they are. And I'm like, what is going on? This is supposed to be this would never happen in other places I've been or play. I've never seen nothing like this. So we're out there with flat balls and low rims and a cold freezing gym. And, that's kind of the treatment we got. And then obviously, fans were outside the hotel making noise, doing stuff. You were just, hearing drum beats, everything. So, you kind of get used to that. Other years, bus would take the long way, or teams would strategically put you in a hotel that was further from the gym so that you would hit traffic. Because, I played 13 years. So after playing so many years, if you play in a country, you know where you're supposed to stay at, or what's the ideal location. And when you're not staying at the regular hotel that you've stayed at when you played in this country, and now you're on a team that's visiting from outside the country, you're wondering what's going on? We're going to hit crazy traffic, and no one knows. The coaches don't know, but and it happens. And now shooter rounds cut short, or practice, or maybe you don't have as much time for the game to get to the game. So.
Yeah, for me, I don't think I've had. I probably had experiences that I haven't seen directly, but as far as this year, it's always more of the fans that do things that the ref knows they're doing. Like when we went to Ike this year, obviously I'm warming up and I see fans and their kids swearing at me. I'm like, I don't even know who y'all are. But this is what got me. When we were shooting free throws and in timeouts, they have lasers.
Yeah, the grease wet.
And they're shining it in your eye. And the ref knows that they do this. And we had our point guard shooting a free throw. I think we were down it's the third quarter. We were down 6. And they were shooting our eyes in the timeout. But I seen it hit his eye in the third quarter. And it's big free throws. And I'm like, yo, at least give us another shot. You know what I mean? He missed the free throw because the laser, and the ref is like, there's nothing we could do about it. We can't prove that there's a laser. I'm like, you guys know what they do here. So, obviously, I don't think the refs, I'm not saying the refs, I don't want to get fined or nothing like that. I did see the foul counts. I watched the game over, not saying anything about the refs, but yeah, you just know in a gym when I just feel like you're not supposed to win. And everybody's doing everything that they can for you not to supposed to win. And, obviously you can never prove it that, hey, this is exactly it. But yeah, when I had the lasers this year, I thought that was over the top.
I played 2 years in Greece. Because of that, I shoot free throws with my head down. So that, I swear. So like I always keep my head down when I dribble. And right before I'm about to shoot, I look up and then I shoot. That's and then you can't get me with the laser. Those 2 years.
You have good aim for that. Yeah, no, it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. No, I promise you.
Yeah, let's hope for a fair fight, everyone, for these great Game 5 experiences in Madrid, Monaco, and Piraeus. Just to enjoy the playoffs, everyone. It's great that US basketball fans will get a slight piece of this cake to enjoy Game 5 experiences. And as one guy on Twitter tweeted, Americans will finally be able to watch some real basketball. So that's nice.
Yeah, the NBA doesn't get real right there. I also I guess we got to commend Partizan as well, because I wasn't sure what to expect, being at Stark Arena, and they handled themselves professionally. The fans did a great job. They didn't put any harm on the players, and they kept it basketball. So, we got to give them their little kudos, because they did a good job, and that's how basketball's supposed to be. Keep the game exciting, yell, scream for your team, but keep it safe.
Yeah, I actually tweeted, I was just joking, like they better have the National Guard when they go into Serbia, because, I played there, and obviously I was at Red Star, but, I love the passion that some European teams have. Karsiyaka is tough to play at, obviously Red Star, Partizan. Yeah, but for Partizan to, there was no trouble, with the players and everything, because at the end of the day, it's basketball. Yeah, what happened with Partizan and Real, it went past basketball. But when fans get involved, it's not enjoyable, for the players. And then you have to think about the players' families as well. I know if I was on Real and I was going to Partizan, my wife knows European basketball. She's going to be nervous, for me to go to play in that game. So for the Partizan fans to keep it respectful, you definitely got to give them the credit for that.
Yeah, we should all be worried about or concerned about the outcome of the game, not about the surroundings or just player safety inside the gym. So yeah, kudos for Partizan fans, for everyone who endures that kind of environment, starting from Željko Obradović from the first press conference after this brawl in Madrid. Then they made some dinners between front office members of Real Madrid and Partizan, putting those pictures on social media just to show that, we're good, we're settled those things down. Kevin Punter also tweeted and kind of accepted Sergio Llull's apology. So that was a great example how we can control these emotions that sometimes they are boiling over and can cause some issues. Let's hope there won't be any issues. Let's hope that there's going to be a fair fight for everyone in Game 5. And I have to admit that, gentlemen, it was great to share this, to spend this 1 hour with you talking about hoops, talking about some other behind-the-scenes stories. And thanks, and enjoy Game 5s this week.
Thank you for having me, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Anytime you need me, I'll be there. Just a phone call away. And always good to talk to my Lithuanian people. Hope y'all not mad at me for predicting that 3-0. I still love y'all.
You were super close. You were super close. You were so right, because it basically was one competitive game.
It was a good series. Even though it was 3-0, it was a good series to watch. And I think the Lithuanian people can be happy with the product that those guys put out and the character they show.
They're happy with this 1.5 million. I can say.
Yeah, 3 million would have been even better.
3 million would be nice.